Hello, and welcome to A Place to Call Home. It's our weekly series where we talk about everything in this community. I'm Portia Evans, and it is my pleasure to welcome to the show today UL Baseball,
How you doing?
Tony Robichaux.
There you go.
Welcome, Coach.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
It is so good to meet you, to have you here to talk about a very special upcoming event. And that event is to honor one of the well-known coaches that passed through our lives, Coach Mel Didier. And I've met Coach Didier on many occasions, had him here on the show a lot of times, but to honor this man and Mr. Walter Guillory, who was supposed to be with me today, what he sent you, and I know that Coach Didier touched your life.
Yeah.
And the lives of many people in this community, on and off the field.
Well, he did. He was a true, what we call a baseball man. He had that baseball gene. It was in him. He was going to spend his whole life in baseball. And so I'm kind of pinch hitting for Walter, and he made a big impact on Walter's life too, because Walter and I both played together here at USL when Mel was coaching here.
And, I was telling you earlier, Coach, coaches are in the news a lot lately.
We are.
For a lot of different topics. What do you think about those Astros last night?
Well, I'm glad. I'm for good baseball. I have that baseball gene, so I enjoy baseball. I'm glad it went 7. I always want them to go as long as they can, especially in the World Series, because it's the end of baseball season.
I think that's by design sometimes.
You think so?
Yeah. I don't know, but I always thought that.
Well, when two good teams get together, usually they're going to split it, and they'll usually with both of them having the ability to come back from losing, that's what makes it go 7 games.
So how is the UL team this year?
We're going to be good. We're a little young, so we're trying to get some of these young kids weathered to the best of our ability for the schedule ahead. We have a very tough schedule. This year we go open at University of Texas for 3 games, and then we head to the Minute Maid Classic in Houston. We'll play on the field that the Astros play on, which is great for our players, and we'll end up playing Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. We've got LSU here this year. They come here, and then we also have them again, the Wally Pontiff Classic in New Orleans. Wally was a great player for them, and he unfortunately went to bed one night as an LSU Tiger, and he didn't wake up. And their family lost a son, lost a child, and so they created the Wally Pontiff Classic so that LSU would come there in New Orleans, Zephyr Stadium, play a game, and use those funds to keep the legacy of their child alive. And so we're just honored that LSU asks us to come each year to play in that, so that we can continue to help keep Wally Pontiff's legacy alive.
And Coach, we're here to talk about Coach Mel Didier. We lost him a couple of months ago. He was 90 years old.
Yes.
And can you recall the first time you met this man?
Well, I met him in my baseball career. I was actually playing for McNeese State University in Lake Charles.
Hometown.
Is it Lake Charles? So I was there playing. And I decided we had a coaching change. So one of my friends, Paul Johnson, that was from Crowley. I'm originally from Crowley and played against Paul. Paul played at Crowley High School. I played at Notre Dame High School, but we met at Wharton County Junior College. Then we went from Wharton. I went to McNeese out of Wharton. Paul went to USL. So when we had a coaching change at McNeese, Paul called me one day and said, "Hey, why don't you come play here at USL?" Our head coach is Mel Didier, assistant coach is Brad Kelly. So I came down there and I met with Mel, and then I transferred. But because I transferred from McNeese and USL were in the same conference that year, but USL was getting out of it. So I had to sit out a year. So Mel redshirted me that first year. So, when I went to his office that day, I was still a young kid, and Mel's a pretty big man. And it was a little intimidating, he knew so much baseball, and you knew how much baseball background he came from. But it was really an honor and a privilege to meet him, and then he allowed me to stay there in redshirt. And because of my age, I was going to be a senior. Back then, the NCAA allowed you to have a JV team. So he called me in one day and said, look, you're going to be redshirted. And for the listeners out there, the viewers out there, redshirt means you can practice every day, but you can't get in the game for a year. So he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to set a schedule up against some of the high schools, and you'll take our JV team and you'll coach them. And that's really where I kind of got the gene or the bug to be a coach.
Really?
Yes. And so I attribute that a lot to Mel. And then earlier when you and I were talking off air, the biggest thing that Mel taught me, and all of us, Walter too, is he taught us the professional side of baseball.
Really?
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm sure you passed that on to your players today.
They don't like it all the time, but that's where it comes from Mel. You know, we had to polish our shoes because he had come from the big leagues and he had come from running professional baseball. And we had to polish our shoes or we couldn't get on the bus. So man, in the hotel and road games, I mean, you were at the sink, man, polishing your shoes, because in the big leagues, all their shoes are polished. But the clubby does that, and they pay the clubby. Well,
Yeah.
in college, you ain't got no clubby. You the clubby.
You the club.
You the clubby. So we were polishing our shoes in the sink, and then tuck our shirts in, you know, be on time, get where you're supposed to be, play the game the way it's supposed to be played. When he handed out his meal money when you got off the bus, if you didn't say thank you, he pulled it back. I mean, you forfeited it for that day, you know. And there was no play in him, but it was a lot of professionalism, and I really think, you know, old school. And he taught us the way to play the game, the way the game's supposed to be played.
And we are here to talk about a celebration for the late Mel Didier, and that celebration is going to be going on November 11th. It's going to be happening at the home of Bobby Dupree, which is at 2688 Ducharme Road in Opelousas, Louisiana. And we want to invite the entire community to come out. You can contact Mr. Walter Guillory, and I think his name and number are on the screen. But Coach Didier touched the lives of a lot of people in this area, including our guest here today, which is UL Coach Tony Robichaux. And Coach Robichaux, I was thinking about Coach Didier and how this was all put together. And I know, you know, Walter calls me all the time and says, Portia, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. But I was thinking about Coach Didier's life and the things that I read about him. Mm-hmm. And one of his aha moments concerned Mel Gibson.
Yes, actually Kirk Gibson.
Kirk Gibson.
But yes. But it was a great moment in World Series history. I mean, he hits one of the biggest home runs there were in the history of almost Major League Baseball. And Mel was called a super scout. They would go out ahead of the team when they would play, and they would watch the pitching, usually 4, 5, 6, 7 to 10, 12 days in advance, and they would record everything, his tendencies. And Kirk was actually injured that night in that game, but Tommy Lasorda wanted to pinch hit him. So Eckersley was in the game as a righty, their closer, and Kirk Gibson went down to the tunnel. They kind of hit him and let him hit into a batting cage screen or a net to warm him up. Tommy didn't want the Dodgers the Oakland A's to get a left-handed pitcher up. They wanted to have left versus right. So anyway, he went down to the tunnel and basically told him that, you know, if he gets the count to 3-2, that Eckersley has been throwing backdoor breaking balls or sliders in that count to look for that. And of course, the count, as history shows, works itself to 3-2. And he threw that backdoor slider, and Gibson hits it out of the ballpark for one of the greatest home runs in Major League Baseball history. And a lot of that was just one piece of Mel's professionalism. He paid so much attention to detail when he coached.
I was thinking, I wonder how he knew that.
Well, pitchers have tendencies. They like to throw things in certain counts. But
he was a great pitcher.
One of the best. But he prepared. He gave Gibson one piece of information that turned the whole history of the Dodgers around. I mean, that was their last World Series.
Do you ever find yourself doing the same thing?
We track tendencies, and I don't know if I've ever had that big of a moment, but we've had some great moments where we've told the hitter what we thought was coming, or we told the pitcher what we thought this was going to happen, and it played out that way. And it's a great feeling, you know, and it had to be a great feeling for him to be able to give that one piece of information and have so much history surrounded. A lot of people don't know the backstory to it. You know, they saw the home run,
Yeah.
but they don't know what truly led up to it.
Yeah, I read that he was a great pitcher.
Yep.
And he was from Marksville, Louisiana, down
Yep.
that way.
Yep.
And he came to our area.
Yep.
I even read a piece about him coaching a little bit at Northside High School.
Yeah, you know, he came out at Catholic High Baton Rouge and went on to LSU as an athlete and that, and then he coached some football at some high schools, and then from football he matriculated into baseball, and that kind of, I think, really evidently was his gene, kind of like what happened to me that day, you know, when he put me in charge of that team. That kind of opened the door for me, and so I think that's when he got into baseball. And you know, he only took 2 years off to come back and be the athletic director at USL here in Lafayette, and then after that it was strictly baseball from then on, and he spent 70 years in Major League Baseball. I mean, that's
Had
a long
a lot to
time.
do with the Dodgers.
The Arizona Diamondbacks, player development for the Toronto Blue Jays, and you've got to also, you know, speak about his wife Elena. You know, my wife Colleen. Wives of baseball coaches have to live a certain life.
Really now.
So much travel. You know, 6 months out of the year you're playing. 6 months out of the year he's probably scouting. Spring training in Arizona. The travel those guys go under, and that's kind of why Walter has put this together with Bobby Dupree at his house, is because, you know, he actually died on my birthday, September the 10th. And,
Really?
Yes, he did.
Aww.
Yes, and you know, a lot of people couldn't get to him because, you know, he was located in Arizona for so long, because that's where spring training is. That's where a lot of baseball happens.
Still in it.
Oh yeah, still in it. Still in it.
At that age.
Well, we always joked, you know, that when he passed, they were going to probably bury him in the third base coaching box because he was Mr. Baseball. And I tell you this off the air, he knew so many people in baseball. You could go into a restroom in Mexico and somebody would come out the stall next to him and they would know him. I mean, he knew everybody. I mean, everybody.
Really?
And he wrote a great book, you know, Podman, Let Me Tell You a Story.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a great book that he put together before he died. So this gives, I think, the people in this area an opportunity to go, because not everybody, including myself, we couldn't get away to get to Arizona to his funeral.
Right. So it's going to be a celebration of his life. It's going to be happening November 11th at the home of Bobby Dupree. And everybody knows Mr. Dupree in Opelousas and in that area. 2688 Ducharme Road in Opelousas. And what time is it scheduled to
11
start?
a.m. Yeah.
At 11? Oh, no, at 12 noon.
At 12 noon.
That's right.
Yes.
It's going to be at 12 noon. You can call 564-2031. That's 564-2031. And find out from Mr. Walter Guillory how you can get yourself into that event. But Coach, I wanted you to just tell me, when you're looking at a guy, when you're scouting somebody,
Mm-hmm.
what do you look for in these young men? What's the, I don't know, secret?
Well, that the toughest part is, I don't know if there is a secret. The biggest thing you look for is markers. If you've been in it so long, like Mel was, you look for markers. You know, they say you need to be in something for roughly 10,000 hours to ultimately become a professional or an expert in that field. So it's like medical doctors that have been in it for so long. You know, if this happens, they probably know that this is going to happen. If this happens, they probably know that's going to happen. So you try to put markers together and you try to look at them and see there's two sides of it. Their athletic side. What are those markers telling you? Will he run faster later? I mean, will he throw harder later? In our sport, being baseball. Then you have the personal side. Can you trust him? I mean, can he make the grades? Has he been in any trouble? Will he have the propensity to be in trouble? So you have two sides that you're always dealing with, and then you got the moral side when you run into this real good athlete, but he might not be a good man. So you know, you run into some unique situations. And then you run into some where you've got the greatest player, but he's a little short on ability. So which one do you invest in? You know, the higher character or the lower character with better ability. So you got so many things you have to deal with in trying to build a team. And so you want to try to get the best players with the best character because, of course, it's very hard, I find, in my 31 years to 31 years to make a snake crawl in a straight line.
So, Coach, I just want you to look into the camera and tell me what you tell young men today, because I don't know, it seems like that, we have a lot of young men out there, whether they're in sports or whatever.
Yes.
That are going astray.
No doubt.
What would you look at a young man and say?
Well, the big thing I think we need to do is I think we need to, first of all, learn how to become a man. Stop trying to be the man and be a man. I think that's one of the big things in our country, especially in my sport, because I'm in sport, it can give a kid an ego at an early age, right? You go into some of these junior highs and you already see these kids, they think they're so much better than everybody else. They're going to go to the NBA tomorrow, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and man, that's so far from the truth, first of all. And so you want to be careful what the game does to them. Sometimes the game gives them an ego. Definition of ego for me is edging God out. That's what ego stands for me. I think anybody has an ego, I think they start to edge God out of their life. Second thing the game does, it makes them earn their identity. You know, try to hit that big home run, try to throw that big breaking ball, strike somebody out of that pass, or hit that big three-point jump shot. They try to earn their identity when yet we should receive our identity. And then I think another thing that sport you got to watch out for, sometimes sport can put the light on you instead of in you. And I think as a man, especially a godly man, there's a difference. We should have the light in us, not on us.
What's the most valuable lesson you ever learned?
To be a man.
I was going to say as a player.
As a player, to take the failure in the game and let that obstacle be the way versus let that obstacle be in the way. And I think that's what gets a lot of people in trouble in life, is that they let the obstacle be in their way. The obstacle is the way. And you have to understand the difference. It's not in your way, it is the way. And failure, baseball, baseball players fail 70% of the time. And so the greatest gift I got from the game was learning how to come back after failure.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hard to do for a lot of people.
Well, that's what cripples a lot of people, and that's what's great about why this 7-game series it went, why it's so emotional, why it resonated with everybody. Because think about this: the Cubs last year won the World Series. They're the best at what they do, but they lost about 60 games. So the best at what they did went home 60 nights a loser. Think about that, right? And they're the best in the world. So were they good at winning, or were they good at coming back from losing? I think they were good at coming back from losing, and that's why this series was so emotional.
Right.
They kept coming back after losing. I think that's what we have to do in our own personal life, is we've got to learn how to come back from losing.
Head coach, UL coach.
Yes.
Tony Robichaux is our guest today. We're talking about an upcoming event that's going to be November 11th. It is a celebration of life for the late, great Mel Didier. It's going to be at the home of Bobby Dupree in Opelousas. That home is located at 2688 Ducharme Road, 564-2031. You can contact Mr. Walter Guillory, and I know that Coach Didier was a big influence in Mr. Guillory's life.
He was. We played together, and I saw Walter, and I saw that the big impact he had, and not just me and Walter, but really he had an impact with everybody that played for him, came across him.
All right. A lot of things going on. I was talking to you earlier. We've got some things going on at UL with one of the coaches, and we'll see how that all plays out. But I wanted to just ask you before we end the show today, what do you think about taking a knee?
Well,
Coach?
we talked about it a little bit off the air. I think what we have to watch out for in our country today is the devil hates unity. This is what we try to teach our players. The devil hates unity. Christ blesses unity. He will bless a marriage if it's unified. He'll bless when we try to get unified. But the devil, He does not want unification. And he's doing his best work today. He's got the black people hating the white people hating the black people. He's got the cops not liking somebody not liking the cops. He's got us kneeling down. Now we've upset maybe the servicemen. He's just stirring the pot today so good. And I think the biggest key with this is I think if we treat each other the way we should be treated, I think it stops everything. And I think somewhere along the way, there's been distrust throughout what the devil does. He gets people to distrust each other. And when we distrust each other, now what happens is we mistreat each other. When you love somebody, you're never going to take advantage of them. And if we would
and God is love.
Well, that's all he is. I mean, at the end of the day.
And love is one of his greatest gifts.
That's what he wants us to do. He says that, love our neighbor and then love him with all our heart. It's not a tough situation. But we have to be smarter than the devil. We have to stop buying into what he's doing to us,
And I think on the issue is we have to be open-minded enough to hear each other.
No doubt.
To hear the conversation.
No doubt.
I've got to listen to you, and I would like you to listen to me.
No doubt. I mean, if you don't walk and spend some time in somebody else's shoes, then you can't have an appreciation of the shoes they're walking in. Right. And that's our biggest issue. And I think you get into so much distrust. You ask somebody to step out of a vehicle. I don't know if he trusts the person that asked him to step out. The person that asked him to step out, I don't know if he trusts him. So guess what happens? Confrontations. And
right.
Where'd that all come from? That came from distrust along the way. And our judicial system needs to, do what it's supposed to do. If somebody's guilty of something, then they need to be guilty of something. And the more you cover stuff up and the more you hide stuff and everything else, the more distrust builds. And the more distrust builds, look, you can't have a relationship with the clown if you don't have trust.
Right.
You follow me?
Right.
And we if we would have trust and we'd love each other and we'd respect each other, I just don't think you'd have half the trouble we have today. I don't know what the answer is. I just know what the trouble's built around. It's built around so much distrust.
Come on out and help us celebrate the life of a great man. We're talking about Coach Mel Didier. A lot of people here in and around Lafayette know Coach Didier because he's touched their lives. So come on out and be with us. That's Veterans Day, so we know that it's going to be a busy, busy day all around, but it's going to be happening at 12 noon at the home of Bobby Dupre at 2688 the Charme Road in Opelousas, Louisiana. And you can get in touch with Mr. Walter Guillory, 564-3021, 564-3021. Get in touch with Walter and find out how you can get yourself there. And we are certainly glad to have this conversation with you, Coach.
Well,
and we just know that you have some people you want to invite and just say, come on down.
Yeah, no, we'd like to see everybody come out. And especially, I know like myself, I couldn't travel to Arizona that day to pay our last respects. And it's going to be really nice. Walter's got like Dusty Baker. He's got some pro players.
Coming.
Coaches. Some of them might be coming, and then some are going to send video.
Okay.
Video testimonies of what he meant to them. So it's going to be pretty neat to be able to see some of these star people that you might see on TV give their video testimony to what really Mel meant to a lot of these coaches and players at the big league level.
Right. November 11th, once again, 12 noon in Opelousas. We want to see you there to honor such a great man. So, Coach, you keep on doing what you're doing. I expect to see you another 31.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Another 31.
All right.
And you keep inspiring those young people that you work with. And we are proud of you. We are proud of our home team. And we just thank you for coming on today, for being with us.
Well, I appreciate it. I really believe this, that if I face the Lord one day, he's going to ask me, I sent you over 400 or 500 boys, what'd you do with them? And I think we need to stop worrying about the color of a man and start worrying about being a man.
Right. Thank you so much
Thank
again.
You.
That is going to wrap up our show for today, and we'll be back again next time with another guest and something else. In the meantime, you be blessed And bye-bye.